Greetings to you wherever you are across the globe. My name is Jim Kuta Sanda, your 21st century missions practitioner and host of VerityTalks. VerityTalks is an online content development and interview program that engages in conversations with accomplished and emerging Christian leaders that are upholding godly values and principles in different spheres of human endeavor. My guest today is a unique personality. He hails from Bauchi State, Nigeria. He is a trained sociologist. He can also be described as a missionary, a businessman, community worker, and a hip-hop artist. He is the visioneer of Beautiful Feetz Ministry, who is dedicated to taking the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ to the streets, particularly among drug addicts and abandoned young people. He has a degree in sociology and anthropology from the University of Maiduguri, Borno State, Nigeria, and in the process of obtaining a master's in organizational leadership with Development Associates International, DAI, Nigeria, an affiliate of DAI, USA. My guest today is married and he has 2 beautiful children. Please join me to welcome Samson Ali to VerityTalks. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir.
I've given a little bit of background information about you, but I'm sure our guests out there would like to know a little bit more about you. Please just go ahead and feel free.
All right, thank you very much. My name is, like he said, Ali Samson Yakubu, and I'm mostly known as OG. OG means obey God in the streets, and also for music, like you mentioned, hip hop music. I'm mostly known as G-Feelings. G-Feelings just means God's emotions, as simple as that. So I grew up with parents who are missionaries. Of course, they tried to lead us to Christ, but because we grew up in poverty and in the wrong also environment, I think so. But now I know that God planned it in such a way that it will be of benefit to a lot of people, not just myself. So my parents were missionaries, and my mom supported by working with the civil service. So my dad was mostly not around, and we were raised mostly by our mom. And we suffered a lot of poverty growing up. And I also was abused as a little child by around 5 years due to, I don't know, circumstances that arose. So that also fostered my hatred and frustration about the idea of having a God who cannot provide, a God who cannot protect, and leaves the people he so-called says he loves to suffer even in their innocence. So that fostered my hatred for God. At some point I became an atheist because, every time when we go to school, we know that by the end of the semester, we are among the people that will be thrown out. So because of that, I didn't really have any foot in any society. I'll change schools frequently because I know my parents at the end of the day, will not. So it went even to the university. I suffered, but by that time I discovered hip hop was a strong thing in my life, and it gave me comfort because I was good at it, and also the world's arms were open at me. So we did what we would do. It further took me into drugs and so many things, with certain affiliations to certain groups that, we did a lot of things that were wrong. Even from secondary school, we'd go to prostitute houses. I remember even going to a native doctor at a very young age, and why? Because of friends' influence, and also the idea that believers couldn't really relate to my kind. And the only thing you hear basically is some cliches that I couldn't relate with, So I went further and further into darkness. But that's why when people ask me when I got saved, sometimes I'm like, God has been saving me ever since I knew myself, because I put myself in a lot of deep things that it took time and process for God to keep delivering me. Until today, He's still delivering me from a lot of things. He's a walk in the light. So as I move closer to Him, I grew and I'm getting transformed in different phases and places. But at some point, I've known Christ as introduced. In short, I got born again at some point when I was very young. If it's encounter, that encounter with Christ, but all through my life I've had encounters with Christ. There was even one time that Christ came into the room after I finished, messing up with a girl, and I was lying down and the heavens opened and I saw Christ, and He didn't say anything. I saw Him with two angels. He just smiled at me, but there was this so much love that it's not the kind of love we say we have. It's not emotional. It was a burning love. He was smiling, but my body was melting. I was crying. That encounter left me crying. So I over and over again, God kept just delivering me and setting me up so that I would serve Him. I remember when I was serving under a pastor and I found out that he was, messing around with girls. And the church threw me out literally for saying the truth. I just, all my life, believers hurt me. That's just it. But God also placed people. When I went to NCCF, God placed an amazing young man there, and he embraced me holistically and trained me because he was a prayer warrior, and he was the Bible study secretary, and I eventually became the Bible study secretary. So all these events was just going to bring me closer to God. NCCA was a really turning around a place for me as I encountered people that loved God and I worked with people. So after that, that's how I signed up to become a missionary, and eventually I started working with MSL. But I always was not like I was always somebody that stood out, because I wouldn't wear corporate clothes and all that. So being able to fit in with normal missionary organizations or churches was very difficult for me, because that wasn't me. I was hip hop, and hip hop is a whole culture on its own. And I didn't just go to the culture; it found me, and that's another talk. Hip hop is it discovered. I believe God is hip hop, which is a story for another.
Yeah, so we'll come to that.
Yes.
Okay.
So, basically, to round this up, God started working with me from there. But even when I was working with MSL, started working with youth. But I found out particularly that God had me interested and put a desire for me to reach out to those people who had a history like mine, basically who are into drugs and all kinds of things. And eventually that manifested.
Okay, great. What a story, and what an impact that the Lord has had in your life over the years. That's quite interesting. I was going to ask you how your journey of faith has been. That was going to be my next question, but you've sort of incorporated it.
Yes, sir.
So I'll just go to the next question. So can you tell us in specific terms what your current work is? What do you do? How do you operate? And let's have a feel of what your work is like currently.
Okay, so my current work is basically a double-edged sword. It's on one hand a mission mobilizer, which is to mobilize or activate people who are dormant or people who are misdirecting resources to to describe it like a hospital, to the doctor's lodge instead of the ICU. So basically to redirect resources of believers who do not know where the heartbeat of God is. It's just like in a house, just you keep buying furniture when you can train the people in the house, you can buy them food and essentials, basically, instead of just buying artwork and all that. So on one hand. So it's to expose people to what missions is really, because a lot of people in the church today don't know what mission is. They know it. They even have paintings on buses, mission evangelism buses, but they do not know about the unreached people. They do not know about those least reached nations. Some of them who are around us, and some of them who are even within us, and they do not know the biblical basis of missions, basically, and the 1040 windows and all that. So, first exposing believers to the global issue of missions, and how if God's glory is to infiltrate the whole world, then this tribal people who are trapped in the prison of tribal religion, Hinduism, atheism, which is more now spreading everywhere, the Muslim Buddhist bloc, all those things. We need to start praying and looking at these things. Even like I was sharing with believers, I said we're in Jos, which is like the headquarters of Christianity, but Bauchi right here is have the highest number of unreached people's group. How can that be? So it's because we are not even focusing on those places. So that's on one hand. On the second hand, is being actually a missionary disciple maker among the least reached in the urban centers, especially in places we call jungles, which are hideouts in rocks and under trees and all that, where you find a particular group of people who are mostly crime, or let's say drug dealers. They're into crime. They're armed robbers. They're all kinds of people basically that are there who separate themselves from society to be able to practice what they do. Some of them, there are stories behind those things, but then they are secluded and they are a growing problem. They are a pandemic because they keep multiplying everywhere, and they are basically the source of crime, because in there they have a large mass that criminals go there to recruit, into all kinds of things. Yahoo Plus is recruited from there. Yahoo Plus guys recruit from there. Armed robbers recruit from there. Cultists recruit from there. So basically, we have in Jos, if you're familiar with Jos, you will know that almost every day people are killed from Tudumwada, Jenta, Angonsoya, Alheri, Rukuba Road axis. Their dead bodies being found, and they are young so-called Christians killing other Christians. So we go there not just to make disciples, but to make them disciple makers, so that they can be sent back there to be able to reach out to their own people. So basically, that's what I do. Of course, we use hip hop to be able to do that as accessible, but we use much more than that. So that's a bit of a summary of what we do.